Welcome to 𝗃𝗶𝗺𝗶𝗵 Fisheries, and for this episode of Spotlight we're fishing Scraley Mere. Right, so have I got an update for you this morning. Once I actually got this fish out of the water, I can see why there is such a big appeal to fish this lake. If I don't get that bite and the fish are there, I start asking questions in my head. Why haven't I got a bite? That's the odd bubble that is going in the line. So that's proof in the pudding. You know, reacting and moving very early in the morning with things that you see will get you bites.
You have to know your watercraft, know the signs and react the right way to the signs.
Mate, just look at that, that is ridiculous. So we've been to 𝗃𝗶𝗺𝗶𝗵 before. We've done a session and a video actually on the main lake just to my right hand side here, and yeah, we're on Scraley Mere. Now this lake is about 4 acres, maybe a little bigger than that, but it holds about 40 fish in there, I think, so I've been told, but they are the creme of the creme. Come in all various sizes. There are some small ones in there as well, but I think if we do get amongst them and you start seeing what these fish look like, you'll understand exactly why we're fishing that lake. Done a couple of laps around the lake now, and I was hoping I was going to see something really obvious, but unfortunately I haven't. I did fish this a couple of months ago in the middle of winter, didn't have anything, but what I did do is I did find a few areas that I was presenting baits on then. So what I've actually done is I've made up some solid bags on a couple of 6-foot scopes, and I've just literally pub chucked those bags on top of those areas that I knew were clear a couple of months ago, just so I can have something in the water soaking while I set up my main rods. There is weed that is coming through in certain areas, so I've played it safe. I've gone with the helicopter setup, and I've gone with pretty much a hinged stiff, hinged Ronnie sort of contraption rig, I suppose, whatever you like to call it. So many different variations and names for these rigs nowadays, but the most critical thing is when that lead goes in, it slides up on that helicopter system and then it lays flat on top of whatever's out there, and it always resets. So that's why I'm using that rig. Being here, like I say, last month, a couple of months ago, all that little, although we blanked, I did gain a lot of information about the lake. So hopefully that's going to put us in a good situation and position to probably get one out of here. So, well, that's what I'm hoping anyway. So one thing I really like about this lake is all the little snags and the nooks and crannies everywhere. It looks very mangrovey and actually reminds me of the Metz Lake at West Drayton, particularly the back section over there. I have had a good rummage around, and I've done a little bit of hopping around from little islands to islands, straddled across trees and bits and pieces, and it's generally quite shallow through there and I haven't seen anything. But I think if they was there, I would have seen some form of movement in the water, and they're clearly not there at the moment. So it can only mean one thing: they're in this open body or in one of these little deep depressions, and after leading about in this area directly in front of me, I've got a nice little 2.5 foot dropping down to 5 foot and then drops down again. So I've got it all going on in front of me, and yeah, I'm really positive about the location that I'm fishing and what I haven't seen around the other side of the lake at the moment. But that's not to say that at some point they're not going to be over there, and that is the reason why I bought the scopes this time. So if I do see something, because I will be going backwards and forwards around the lake throughout the day and then coming back here more of night time, yeah, I can do the stalking with the scopes. And last time I was here, I didn't have them, so that was one thing that I made sure that I was going to have with me on this particular trip. So fingers crossed, let's see what happens, and yeah, I've got 3 days. Starting to get a few liners now. As that sun's starting to drop behind that horizon over there, I'm getting liners on all 3 rods. Now, Sean and Chloe, two of the bailiffs at 𝗃𝗶𝗆𝗏 have come over today, had a bit of a chat, picked their brains, and yeah, it's looking promising. Particularly now that the baits that I've actually put out in the water have been soaking for a little while, and I do believe the fish are moving in because I've been watching my rod tips bounce around. So they're there, they're in the area, just need them to pick the bait up. So everything's crossed at the moment, and we're just about going into the night. Right, so have I got an update for you this morning? Where do I start? It's been a long night, let's start with that. And true to nature, the bream come a little bit alive, like they did on the first trip that I was here as it got dark. But I kept working through it, and eventually it all come good. After about 7 bream, but I didn't give up. I could have quite easily just brought those rods in and put them to the side because I was literally getting a bream every half an hour, but I didn't. I kept on going, I kept rebaiting up, keep putting it back out there. I've had absolutely no sleep whatsoever, and at 6 o'clock this morning the rod went into action, and straight away I knew it was a little bit different to the takes that I've been having all the way through the night, and it was a very, very angry common. People have said to me how nice these fish are, and I haven't really seen anything other than a few shadows cruising around, but not a lot. I've seen a few photographs, but once I actually got this fish out of the water, I can see why there is such a big appeal to fish this lake, to catch this strain of carp. They're absolutely phenomenal. I know Alan Blair bangs on about this venue and the fish and the strain of fish in here, and he couldn't be, yeah, he's definitely not wrong. He's definitely not wrong. Look at that, what a release. Go on that way. Anyway, we've gone back out there again. I do know that they seem to be more active in the early hours of the morning, so I'm just wondering whether today I've got a spot out there which I'm really confident from, and that's where I picked up all the bream and actually the carp as well. So I'm a little bit unsure about my second and third rod, so I'm going to try and find another area that I feel really confident, and confident I can introduce a little bit more bait and just sit on them and hopefully pick up a few more. So I think today is a bit more feature finding, have a look around the lake, and maybe just try and stalk something out with a single rod, one of the little sawn-offs, because the wind's dropped today. It is like a mill pond through here, and they're going to be a lot easier to find.
You've got a very bad hair day today, mate.
Have I? I'm not surprised. Look at the bags under the eyes as well. So, as you can see, I'm making a rig up at the moment because we have just spotted not one fish, not two, but potentially the mother lode in the centre part of that lake there. Now, the difference from yesterday is yesterday it was really windy. Today, it's like a mill pool, and you can see any tiny little flicking under the surface, and you get like a little vortex and then a little, almost like a little, what they call, a little whirlpool sort of goes off, and that's stuff under the water doing that. And to create some of the stuff that we're noticing out there can only be done by carp. So that means another thing. they're not on the bottom. They are quite high up in the water. And when I led it about out there yesterday, I know it ranges from about 4 to 5 foot of water, but there is a 2 foot bar. Now where we've seen the fish are around the bar, but they're not actually on it. There was fizzing on the bar this morning, but the fish that we've seen, or the movements under the water, are just around the outside. So, making up some zigs very, very quickly, and I'm going to fish one at 2 foot, and I'm going to fish another one at 3 foot, a bit of foam, one with black and a bit of cork and a red maggot, the other one yellow foam with black foam and a maggot, and we're going to put them in that area and just see what happens. But 2 different colours. Certain fish do respond to certain different colours, and I know that for a fact because I've been on lakes before, and it seems the same fish come out all the time. And the reason for that is they're coming out on the same colour bait, and because every time I've asked someone what you catch it on, white pop up, and I know full well them fish like white pop-ups. And as soon as you change it up and you use something different, you start catching the fish that don't come out that often, that don't pick up the white pop-ups. So that is why just playing about with colours is the best thing you can do, because the fish are there and they're actually feeding on something, but they're not picking your rig up. You've got to start asking the question why. And this is what plays with my head all the time. Why hasn't the fish picked that bait up yet? What can I do to try inspire a bite? And 9 times out of 10 is making small changes, and the results are big differences. Well, we've got to that point of the day again, and it's at the end of the day, the sun, and what a beautiful sunset it is, I must say, is going behind the horizon over there. Although I haven't had anything today, I feel a lot's gone on, where there was carp cruising around, we see them in the middle, so I've made some quick changes, put some new zigs on, different colours, and nothing happened, which I was really, really surprised about. So, me being me, if I don't get that bite and the fish are there, I start asking questions in my head, why haven't I got a bite? So I've started playing about again, and I've got a helicopter system. I've cut off the Ronnie rig. I've tied on a piece of supple braid to the end of a stiff boom, so I could critically balance my hook bait so it just sits on top of weed, because I think they're actually lower down in the water. They're definitely not picking the zigs up. And what I have found as well is there's quite a lot of big roach in here, so I was getting a lot of little knocks on the zigs. I think if I used some bigger baits on the zigs, I probably would have been all right, but yeah, it just wasn't right. Something was just telling me to come off the zigs. So that led me to my next problem. I'm back on the deck again, and I only come with a small amount of bait, so I made a quick trip to the local shop and stocked up. So I've got some new bait. I know I'm not going to run out because I've got 2 days worth of fishing still to go, and I found some really, really nice areas out in the centre of the lake with the lead, and there's like a bit of a shallow plateau. It drops back off again, and the lead just skims across and goes into some real solid weed, and that's where the carp are. Some birds come in earlier, they hit the water, and then the water just erupted, and then it seemed to be a constant thing. Every time a bird went out to that centre course of the lake, that main body, they were stopping and looking a little bit concerned and then turning and going away. So we knew they were there, and they've been there all day. Now we just got to work out how to catch them. So, I have heard that this lake is very good for a morning bite. I had the fish this morning, early hours of the morning, so that sort of like followed that suit. But I did have to battle through them bream last night, and I think that's going to be the same again tonight. As soon as that sun goes down, them bream are going to get active. I'm going to need to keep putting that bait on them spots, and that will get that spot going. It will churn everything up, and then eventually the carp are just going to be so inquisitive, they're going to move in there, and hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll pick up another one. And that's what I'm hoping with. Well, that's what I'm hoping for. So yeah, I'm ready, we're all set, got a nice cup of coffee, and I'm just about to cook some grub. Another productive night last night. Less bream. They let me have a little bit of sleep last night and only had a couple, but what I did do is I did have another carp, and it was off of that area out in the centre there that we see loads of activity. And I actually put 2 rods on, and I had a bream first, then I threw it back out, then I had another bream, and then my left rod went, and then my right rod went. I picked one up, that was a bream. I picked that one up and felt, actually that's a carp, so I put that one back down again. Oh, it was a right kerfuffle. But cut a long story short, we managed to get another carp. It wasn't the biggest one in the lake, but it was your typical old Scraley looking carp, and yeah, a very, very pleasant surprise. So, one thing I've noticed, it's still very, very early this morning and there's a lot of activity going on. There's fizzing, there's bubbling, and just before I started this, there was a fish that crashed right in that margin just there. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and have a look and see if I can find something with a rod, and yeah, use this time wisely to wangle one out with a single hook bait if I can, just by being in the right place at the right time and just lowering that rig in. Now, what I'm seeing, they're moving around quite a lot, so this is a good opportunity while everyone else around the lake is tucked up in their bivvy and they've not seen what I've seen. So I'm going to disappear off pretty sharpish. I think I can see something just off that snag, just out there. It's the odd bubble, but it's going in a line, so it's not the lake bed, I believe, giving off a few gases, which it does this time of year as that weed's starting to grow. That to me looks like a cut. It's changing direction. There's definitely something there having a light graze on something, I don't know what. Maybe I should just throw a single on it. Yeah, let's do that. Let's throw a little single on it. Let's see if it's yeah, it's definitely a carp. Let's just move it backwards and forwards. Let's do that. So this is the other side of this bush where that snag's sticking out. It's literally part of the tree that's fallen down, been cut back, and that fish is still here. It's definitely a fish feeding, and I think I can get to it a little bit better with an underarm flick from this position. So let's go grab a rod and we'll flick it out here, and it's still there now. Nice light lead, little disturbance as possible, little hingy, that should do it. All I've done is I just flicked the rod underneath, just past the area where I noticed the fish were bubbling up, and just very, very slowly, as the lead, a very light lead, was just dropping through the water column, I lowered it into position, so a little disturbance as possible. Laid the rod down and we just sat there for a little while. The bubbles were still going, the carp was still there, so we was confident that something was going to happen. And the SD card ran out on the camera. We put a new one in, and while Jamie was doing that, the rod went, so we didn't get the live take, but we did manage to get most of the actual fish being caught anyway. So that's proof in the pudding. You know, reacting and moving very early in the morning with things that you see will get you bites. Now, last time I was actually here, we sat on a log with the 2 bailiffs, Sean and Chloe, and we had a bit of a chat about, you know, 𝗃𝗶𝗺 as a fishery and what it is, about the lakes, the fish stock in here, and it was really, really enjoyable to hear some of the things that I had to say. So let's go and take a look at that right now. We said we was going to catch up with Sean and Chloe a little bit later, so here we are. and they are fishing. What lake are you fishing?
𝗪𝗶𝗺𝗶𝗵𝗺.
𝗪𝗶𝗺𝗃. So 𝗪𝗶𝗺𝗃 was the first, was the video that I did last year in the Spotlight episode. So
September.
It was September time, wasn't it? Yeah. So Sean and Chloe are on there now, and yeah, tell us a bit about that lake.
Well, 𝗪𝗶𝗺𝗃, to start off with, it's about 13 acres. It's hard to judge the size because of the layout of the lake. I mean, as you walk out of the car park, you walk out onto the open area, which has got a couple of dotted little islands in there. And as you walk up the lake, you come into the channels and the islands and stuff like that. And yeah, it's pretty much got every type of fishing for every type of angler, depending on what you like, whether you like your close in snag fishing or you got your distance fishing out in the middle of the open bowl.
So you've been fishing these lakes for a long time now, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, me and Chloe have been coming here on and off for around 10-12 years, pretty much consistently for the past, I'd say, 5 years.
4 or 5, yeah.
Yeah, and obviously the other lakes on the complex, 𝗪𝗵𝗺𝗃 Mere, which is our personal favourite.
I was going to come on to a question. Which one is your favourite? So let's get on to that now. So you're saying that one's your favourite. Why?
Well, 𝗪𝗵𝗺𝗃 Mere was probably the one lake that when we first started coming to 𝗃𝗶𝗺𝗃, we used to fish it a lot because it was one of the lakes that sort of got left. The majority of the crowd, they come down and they go straight onto 𝗪𝗶𝗺𝗃.
Yep.
It has got the better, bigger head of carp. However, in 𝗪𝗵𝗺, there are a lot of smaller carp, but some of the carp in 𝗪𝗵𝗺𝗃 Mere, in my opinion, are the best looking carp on 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏's complex.
Yeah.
There's an A team in there, and just recently Chloe's finished catching the last of the A team, which is a fish called the pretty one. A low 20, big slopey head, big apple slice scales, and it was one of the most epic looking fish I've seen. And 𝗪𝗵𝗺𝗃, it is, in my opinion, again, it's got the better looking mirrors on the complex. And
compared to 𝗪𝗶𝗺𝗃,
when we first started,
many in 𝗪𝗶𝗺𝗃, is there? So that's why we
again,
more.
it is one of them lakes that it tends to be left a little bit than the other. Well, Scraley is Scraley
Was
Mere,
always booked out,
but
𝗪𝗶𝗺𝗃
is the lake that typically gets fished by the majority of the anglers.
Obviously, over the years, things changed slightly. What would you say with that particular species that was originally stocked in these lakes? Where are these better fish? Is it Scraley, or is it a mixture of all across the whole lot of the lakes?
All 3 lakes has, I would say that when they was originally stocked, so I think it was the early 80s when 𝗪𝗶𝗺𝗃 was originally dug. I think most of the stocking went into 𝗪𝗶𝗺𝗃.
Yep.
And then I think it was 10 years down the line where they dug the other lakes out. They then took some of the stock from 𝗪𝗶𝗺𝗃 to put into 𝗪𝗵𝗺𝗃 and Scraley.
Yeah.
I
mean, Scraley's probably got the best
Scraley
ones in there, really.
I don't know whether it's purely because it doesn't get fished by as many anglers. The layout of the lake, so the natural food larder that's in there for them, but typically does create the better, bigger fish.
Yeah.
Again, it might just be because Scraley Mere's stock isn't the same as 𝗪𝗵𝗺𝗃 and 𝗪𝗶𝗺𝗃, so they've got more food, more oxygen per carp.
There's probably a combination of a lot of different things why they tend to do well in there, and they last as long as they have, because these are all old fish in this lake now. And in actual fact, you know, because it's a little bit more trickier with the weed at certain times of the year, you know, we're in February now and I'm still finding weed across the bottom. So you have got to think about what you're doing a lot more than what you would have to do on some of the other lakes.
Yeah.
It is the tricky lake of the 3.
And that's how you
far.
increase your angling skill.
100%. Yeah, I think again it's a combination of the low stock in there and the layout of the lake. You have to know your watercraft, know the signs, and react the right way to the signs.
Well, I think that's a great bit of info from you guys, and I think we'll cut it off there, and get back on the rods and see if we
Try
can
catch
get a
some
few
carp.
out,
Get
try
the rods out,
and
definitely.
Absolutely.
pick this up a little bit later. But yeah, thanks for explaining everything. And yeah, if you need any advice and you're booked on here or you're coming down here on a day ticket, if these guys are around and girls around, pick both of their brains, because they clearly know what they're doing and they're very, very passionate about their fishing. So yeah,
Absolutely. My pleasure.
we will be back
We will.
in a bit. Right, catch you later.
Get the rods out. Ooh.
So, we've had a few fish now, and always happy with having a few, but I always want one more, or maybe more. So, what we've got here is, out in that particular area, in that central body, we know there's fish there, and we constantly see birds landing, cormorants, and what happens is the water actually erupts and flattens off, and you see tail flicks. So they're definitely there, and they're quite high up in the water. The problem we've got is it is very weedy out there as well. So, we did try zigs yesterday, but I don't think that the zigs were sitting above the weed or in the right situation in the water column. I think what was actually happening, because the weed is a little bit low, a little bit high, it's all over the place, it's not a solid level. What's happening, I think the rig was, or the zig was going actually into the weed and it was being disguised. So what I've actually done is I've got a heli system here called a drop off, and I've got a little, just over a foot zig. Now, this is where the magic happens, because it's almost like a auto self-cocking adjustable zig. Now, the rig will go down, the lead will hit the water, that will then slide and go directly through the weed. This will slide up because it acts like a parachute, so this little 1 foot zig, and then it's running up about nearly a metre up onto the leader, and that's going to sit in the weed. And what's going to happen is now that zig is above the weed, no questions asked, it's above the weed. And then when we tighten the line down, we're going to bridge across that weed like that. That's going to sit up nicely presentated in front of the fish, hopefully, and then when they do take it, the lead will literally be pulled straight up through the weed, and as they pull on it, it'll drop the lead, and then we are in control, playing the fish on top of the weed. So that's the theory, the auto setting adjustable zig, and I'm sure I probably haven't explained it very well, but you can see what it's actually doing just by me mimicking that going up and down there through the weed, up, and it's presenting on top of the weed. So let's see if we can get one doing it this way. Right, so one thing you'll notice with myself is I'm constantly changing things, and that's more so if I know I'm on the fish and the bite hasn't happened, I'm doing something wrong. So this is just another way and another different variation of my angling, and yeah, we've tried it all now, and if this doesn't work, I'm out of answers. So despite thinking I was going to get a bite today and make a few changes, I was so confident and it just hasn't happened. The last 2 nights the fish have come as that sun has gone behind that horizon over there, and early in the morning. So yeah, no day bites, a little bit frustrating, but it is what it is. I'm going to have hopefully a restless night's sleep tonight. Now this is the 3rd time we've actually been to 𝗃𝗶𝗺𝗏 fisheries. The first time was on the main lake over the back there, and that's got some nice fish in it. Caught quite a few fish on that last trip. The easier lake of the whole complex is 𝗃𝗶𝗆𝗿, and that's that's one if you want to get a quick bend in the rod bite, heavily stocked. And then you've got Scraley Mere, which is the sort of like the jewel in the crown, the harder water, low stock. Yeah, and it's got some real rewards in here. So I'm going to bin these rods in a minute. I'm going to get myself set up. I've got some spots out there that I found during the day today by having a bit of a lead around, and I found some areas that actually I'm quite surprised about and I didn't know they were there. So I'm going to put a rod on there tonight. I'm going to keep one on the area where I've had bite over the last couple of nights, and let's see how things go. But yeah, need to cook some food as well. That's the second time I've said that, but we haven't eaten all day because we've been trying so hard to catch some fish. So at that time of the morning again, where the sun's just literally come up, it's still very, very early, and a pattern has definitely formed. We've had fish now every night, and the days have been quiet, but that's not to say that that doesn't change as we come into the summer months. They get more active during the day as well as night, but at the moment it is still very much night bites on here. And I can understand why people drop on here for a quick overnighter and manage to wangle one out. So that last fish that I just had, it was not the biggest in the lake by a long, long way, but it was still very pretty, and it was a mirror as well. And we know full well that the most predominant species in here are commons, so having a mirror, regardless of size and looking like that, it's just a great way to finish this trip. So that is an end to this session, and we're going to have a slow pack down. I'm still going to leave the rods out there because you just don't know what could happen while you're packing down. And I'd definitely come back here. I want to come back here and do a bit of surface fishing on here in the summer months. I have been told it is a good lake for wangling one out on the top. So going back to what I just said earlier, there's a bit of a pattern there as well. They probably come out during the day on the surface more as you come into the summer months. But this time of year, very much night bites. So that's another wrap to another episode of Spotlight, and we'll see you again very, very soon.